If you're not going to spend that money in the next 2 years, then really cash is not really necessarily the right investment.
What if I win a lottery tomorrow?
If you're going to dip your toe in the water of crypto,
So can I start investing for $100 from tomorrow? What are some common misconceptions about investing?
what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that.
How can we define short-term financial goals and long-term financial goals, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good question actually.
If I want to become a millionaire, how long it will take and what will be the minimum amount that I should be investing?
Why are you investing?
One of the things which bothers me quite a lot is like I'm thinking of buying a home, right? Still, I'm not sure this is a right investment for me. Buying home, like for me, it's more important to have a place which I can feel and have it's my own place, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about if I want to renovate it today. I can go there and I don't have to take anyone's permission or so and so.
Yep.
So that's one major thing which considers me to get a home.
Yep.
And second thing, it questions me, am I doing the right thing? Should I be investing in somewhere else, or having a home is the right investment, like let's say for next 10 years?
So a lot of people are you're starting to hear this a lot from people that don't buy your home. Buy investment property. Now, I'm possibly a little bit biased here because my wife and I rent where we live and we own investment property outside of that, right?
Okay.
Because to buy where we live, you'd need millions.
Okay.
And anecdotally speaking, from our client base, we are starting to see our client base of people who are renting where they live and owning investment property is only growing and growing and growing. We're seeing that more and more and more and more. People renting where they want to live, for example, in a city, and buying investment property elsewhere. So, just because you might not necessarily be able to buy your own home is not necessarily an excuse to not get onto the property ladder, and we've got a strategy and that's our strategy. Now, that's not to poo-poo people who want to own their own home and who can own their own home and use that home as leverage to purchase investment property.
Yeah.
That's okay, but it is a growing number of the population, especially younger people, who are using a cash deposit to go and buy an investment property. And often there are lenders who will lend you 90%. So, we get our hands on investment property anywhere from the sort of the 400,000 range and up, right? So you'd only have to have saved $40-something thousand if you're borrowing 90%. So it's not necessarily a huge sum of money required to get you onto the property ladder. So what I'm trying to say is don't let that stop you because you don't feel like you've got enough, You see this in the news all the time. I'm getting priced out of the market. Woe is me. It's getting harder and harder. Well, have you thought about investment property instead? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, every cost associated with that property is tax deductible. Anything wrong happens with where you live. That's not your problem. That's the landlord's problem. So,
Oh yeah.
So there's arguments for it and against it, right? But we are seeing, just anecdotally, a rising number of our client base who are people who rent where they live. I'm included in this, and own investment property outside of that.
Buying a home, it's not a right investment that you're saying. In a nutshell, like
Your home is not an investment.
home is not.
I don't know. I look at a home as like a TV or a car.
But it's not depreciating, right? The asset is not depreciating, but it's not growing as well.
Or you can't, unless you downsize your house, you can't grab a chunk of your house and use it to fund your life or your retirement.
Yeah.
Look, everybody needs their castle, as they say, and at some point you're going to need to have somewhere to live. But perhaps that's come about from decades of investing. You're able to buy something freehold, maybe something even modest for your retirement, and you've then got a nest egg or portfolio that's there to fund your retirement. But to me, your home, your TV, your car, they're not investments, and they're not something that we would use as a retirement planning vehicle.
Okay. So I just want to know a few more things. It's like, what are some common misconception about investing? Because from my childhood, we never heard about invest in something to grow your growth.
Yeah.
Because basically, we didn't had that financial literacy from anywhere. We didn't know where to go and learn because of current internet, because of the connection that's happening. Just came to know these are some opportunities we can explore. What are some common misconceptions for when like you heard about investing?
I think maybe a few would be that you need to have a significant sum to start. You don't. If you can put $5 aside, whatever you can put aside
Okay.
for the long term, you don't have to be wealthy or have a huge sum to start investing.
Okay.
I think that's a misconception. A lot of people we meet who own their own home, who want to buy an investment property, think that they need to come up with a cash deposit. It's not the case.
Okay.
We're borrowing 100% of the value of that investment property. So a lot of people think that they can't buy investment property yet because they haven't saved a deposit. You don't need a deposit. Yes, if you're a first-time buyer, you would need a deposit. But most of the time we are utilizing equity in a client's home to leverage that equity to buy or borrow off that equity to buy investment property. So that's a misconception. It's a little bit left field, but that's a misconception we often hear from mum and dad investors wanting to get into investment property, thinking they need to have some kind of cash deposit, or when they hear that there is a deposit requirement for a particular property, because let's say, for example, they've done all of their due diligence, they need to go unconditional, and they need to put a 10% deposit down. They think they've got to come up with that from their own pocket. That's not the case.
Okay.
It's borrowed.
Okay.
So those are a couple of misconceptions just while I'm thinking about it. I guess there could be misconceptions on both ends of the spectrum in terms of risk. Either A, thinking that this is going to be a tiptoe through the tulips or skipping across the mountaintops and nothing's ever going to go wrong, through to this is going to be a horrible, scary ride. I won't be able to handle it. I'm going to be sweating bullets and I won't be able to sleep at night. So those are probably a couple of misconceptions as well. And I think we want to make sure clients are educated in that respect, that they understand what the risks are of what they're getting into, whatever that is, whether that's a Bitcoin fund, whether that's managed funds, whether it's KiwiSaver, whether it's residential investment property. They all come with their own risks that could rear their ugly heads along the way. We could have a global financial crisis. We could have a violent cycle dip like we do with Bitcoin. We could have a tenant kick holes in all of the walls in your investment property. It's understanding those risks and how to mitigate them, how to manage them, and then just get on with your life. So yeah, there's definitely some misconceptions. It's not rocket science, and it's a lot easier to set up a strategy than people might think.
Okay.
And it's easy to understand as well. You don't have to be an economist or an analyst or do this. This is your career move and you're doing it full time, or it's your next hobby. That's not how we want to approach it. We want to approach it in such a way that set and forget. Just let it do its thing, buy right at the front end, and let it do its job, and you get on with your life. And that's how we want to have it run. Hopefully, yeah.
That's good to know. One crazy thing which I want to ask is, everyone wants to be a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
So
probably need 10 million now to have the million there because of inflation. But anyway, yeah.
So the question is, if I want to become a millionaire, how long it will take, and what will be the minimum amount that I should be investing?
I genuinely believe that probably the quickest way there, and I say probably because who knows what other asset could, maybe Bitcoin would get you there fastest, but I think if I had my financial advisor's hat on, I would say probably the quickest way there would be via investment property, through property, because with property, you're leveraging your position. And what I mean by that is, let's just use round numbers and say you're buying a $500,000 property, for example, and you were able to get into it at 90% lending. So you needed to come up with 50,000 or something, right? So you've turned that 50,000 into a $500,000 investment now, right? So you could put that $50,000 into managed funds, the bank, you could buy some gold, whatever. And you'll get a return on that 50,000, right? Or you've purchased an asset that's worth $500,000. If we look at New Zealand property over the last 50 years, residential property, it's done around about 8 to 10% per annum on average for the last 50 years, every single year, right? So now you start to think about, okay, well, what would be my return on $500,000 if it's doing 8 to 10% versus me putting 50,000 into a portfolio and getting, say, 5 to 10% or whatever. You know, you could start to see my returns. Let's just use round numbers because it's easier for my brain. If it was 10%, 10% of 500,000 is for 50,000. 10% of 50,000 is 5,000. So you start to see the power of leverage. Now, I'm not necessarily saying those are the exact numbers and that you'd expect 50 grand of growth every year in a $500,000 property. I'm just trying to say that the power of leveraging, where you're leveraging the power of that $50,000 because you were lent a whole chunk of change from a bank and you went and bought you strategically, and when I say strategically, you've sought the right advice and you've bought in the right area, right rental yield, blah, blah, blah. New build, most likely. Your returns on that higher amount should outperform anywhere else you would put that. Now, again, if you put it into extremely high risk crypto, maybe you would do better. Maybe you'd smash that out of the water, but it would be a lot higher risk. So it is definitely conceivable to be adding about $1 million to your portfolio every 10 years, give or take. That's just from experience. That's what we've seen.
Okay. How can we define short-term financial goals and long-term financial goals, right?
Yeah. I think that's a good question, actually. That definitely dovetails to what we just talked about. I was just going to say that.
Okay.
You really should, if you're wanting to become a millionaire through investment, it's a long slog, hard slog. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich really bloody slowly scheme. So long-term in our world is sort of 10 years or more. And then, you've got short-term goals that could be anything between now and the next 2 years. And then you've got your sort of mid-term stuff and then long-term, like 5 years. And all of those carry different investment assets that would be the correct kind of place for you to be investing into for those goals. But it's not unusual that we'll meet people that say they don't actually have any short or medium-term goals. They just want to be financially independent, and that's fine. So we're investing for the long term. It's a 10-year plus investment.
Okay.
For example, when we're doing property with people, and this would be the same really with the share markets and really crypto markets as well, ideally you'd want to be in there for at least 10 years.
10 years, that's where we're going to make money.
So when anyone ever talks to me, hey, should I buy Bitcoin now? What do you think? I was like, it's always the right time to buy Bitcoin. It's like it's always the right time to buy property. Just hold it.
Hold it for long.
Hold it for the long term. It's not a speculative get-rich asset. It's a long-term wealth creation vehicle. And if you're buying right, it should pay off for you over the long term.
Long term. It's always the long-term game. Which generation seems more worried about their future stake of financial stability? And which generation do you think is taking more precaution towards that financial stability for their future?
I think if you are starting an investment journey and you're anywhere near your 20s or 30s, even 40s, almost the world is your oyster, as they say. You could write whatever future you want because you've got enough time. So like you said, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. And there is compounding interest. There are stories of those who have taken advantage of compound interest over time who've put very little in, but they've just done it and done it and done it and done it over the years and ended up retiring very well off. So, as long as you're starting as young as possible and you've got some kind of plan, it's very, very likely that you could retire a lot earlier than the standard retirement age in New Zealand of 65. Because you've had decades. That is the best friend any investor could ever have, time. The more of that you've got, the the higher likelihood you're going to be of having success.
What's the difference going to a brokerage app, and what's the difference or coming to a financial advisor like you?
In lockdown with COVID, we saw a lot of people get bored, have extra cash, and they downloaded, I'm not going to mention
Okay,
app names.
All right.
I shouldn't. They downloaded apps that they could buy shares in, and a lot of them made poor decisions because
Why is that?
they didn't know what they were buying.
Okay.
You know, they weren't very well researched. So if you've got the time and the nous to research the markets and pick stocks, go for it. A lot of people mess that up. And I just had a client come to me recently to say he'd done exactly that. It had gone nowhere for I don't know how many years, and he's pulled it all out and he's gone and put it into something that we've recommended, and already he's up. And I'm not saying that that's always going to happen. Oh, boom, they're up straight away, but just so happens that that's the case right now. With someone like us, we work with well-researched, heavily analyzed portfolios. I'm not the one that's doing that, by the way. We work with people that do that, who put together those portfolios that we invest our clients' funds into, or our clients invest their funds into. We're effectively a middleman.
Okay.
And we don't charge a fee to do that. This world this space in our industry is changing a lot, and there is an old school mentality in New Zealand, and I won't go into that, but we are very much, I think, spearheading the new school of financial advice and how to invest and how the whole fee structure works. And I think, I have to say, I think crypto, in terms of the mentality and the methodology, is really leading the charge here. There's a saying, you know, there's a race to zero. Things are getting cheaper, and the technology is getting better. And that's just the way the world is going, and that is the way the investment world is going. And that's how we work with our client base.
Who's your inspiration for being in the financial world?
You know, that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I really believe in that.
Okay.
Because like I say,
I like that quote.
my life was really the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book in real life.
Wow.
I was living in the States. I remember having that light bulb moment of, I'm over this, you know, I'm over this sort of whirlpool that the financial services industry gets you into in terms of this cycle of debt. And I just remember feeling there has to be a better way. And then I realized you can flip that on its head and get that to work for you rather than against you. So, you know, it wasn't long after that I was contacted by my wife's uncle, and I learned a lot from him. And I've learned a lot from a lot of people over the years. And I think for me, what I try to do is pick themes across people I really respect. And if I see them talking about the same things and putting into practice the same things and having the same take on what's going on out there, I start to spot themes, and those themes have worked for me and my clients. So I don't think I can say there's been one person, but there's been a bunch of people along the way who have been inspirational, and there are those right now to me that are inspirational, and I follow them very closely, and I am a big believer in a macro approach to investing, i.e. how the masses think, what's going on a big scale, on a grand scale, and how that affects people's decisions over the long term. I'm not about speculation. I'm not about trading. I wouldn't have a clue how to read charts and know when things are breaking out, or that's not my space.
Okay.
It just makes sense to me. So I don't have you're my inspiration.
Nah, that's good to know that you planned your way.
Oh, totally. I just remember thinking I am over it, in terms of the way that the financial world was smacking me around, you know. And I think for most people that's how they feel as well. And then I just, you know, I was going to say you need to educate yourself, but there is a risk of having conflicting information, and there's a risk of getting paralysis by analysis as well. You've got so many books and information, you end up doing nothing.
True.
That's why of course I would say this, but I do really genuinely believe in having a good relationship with a financial advisor.
That's good.
And that is one thing that a lot of books will tell you. And yeah.
Can you tell me a few books that you recommend to our audience that to gain some financial literacy that you have been practicing on your day-to-day life?
At the moment, I'm reading a book called The Bitcoin Standard.
Okay.
I'm also reading a book by Lynn Alden, and now the name's gone out of my head. I've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon. Another good one is Who Moved My Cheese?
Okay.
Because that's a book about accepting change.
Okay.
And if you're going to be investing, you need to be accepting change. And Richest Man in Babylon, I think, is a good book in terms of looking after the future version of yourself and putting aside, paying yourself first and looking after that future version of yourself. So not looking to the future and saying it's going to be fine, and then not doing anything about it.
If someone want to reach out to you and get some financial advice, what are the best way to do that?
So our website is goodlifeadvice.co.nz, or they can just flick me an email, Daniel, Good Life Advice.
I'll drop it somewhere here so that anyone can.
Just give us a shout over email, and what I normally do is have just an initial chat on the phone. Usually, I can do it in person, but usually we just have a chat over the phone just to get a bit of an idea of where is that person at.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we tend to do next is and again, I know this is a cliche to say it, but because everyone says it, but we do like a financial health check type process.
Yeah.
Where are you at the moment? And also, where do you need to get to if you're going to be financially independent? And what does that journey look like? And then after that, it's about putting a strategy together for that person. And I'm not saying we've got a magic wand and we can magic up money, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about giving the best advice for that client at any given moment as to whatever it is that's going on in their life. Because, for you, where you're at right now, that might be different next year. There might be kids on the scene. And in 5 years, there might be an inheritance that comes along, or a pay rise, or you buy a home, blah, 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 blah. Things change, right? So it's about giving the right advice at any given moment for where that client is at, and then how that applies to their goals down the track as well.
Do you guys use the analyst or whatever you company referring to, right? Do they have any kind of Gen AI solutions built into their analysis part?
We are in for a very, very interesting decade.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think between now and 2030, 2032, it's going to be very interesting. So, what they say, if the robots are stealing your job, invest into the bloody things. So I'm just a big believer in riding that wave.
Okay. It's been a good journey of financial world. Got to know a lot of understanding. Definitely gonna bug you for quite a lot of information. Hopefully our audience will be able to get some, insights from you. We'll put his email address, website, everything on the comment side section as well as on the top. And thank you for your time.
I really appreciate it, and you're doing a really awesome job with this podcast and shows, and keep it up. You're bringing really good information to the masses. Good on you.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll meet again once the opportunity pops in.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
If you truly enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to NLSA podcast, and turn on the notification bell so that you will never miss an update. We have many more guests lined up who are ready to share their journeys and insights with you. If you have any questions or topic you would like us to cover in future episodes, drop them in the comments below or send us a message. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Anuvindh signing off. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, keep pushing the boundaries.